Dignity Matters.
Hello, and thank you for joining me. I'm Bernie Furshpan here at hmTV, your host of Ordinary Heroes. I have someone who's not ordinary. Let me tell you, she is extraordinary. A very special guest, a very dear friend of mine, Carolyn Enger. And she is an international concert pianist. And I'm going to just read her introduction. But before I do, I just want to welcome her. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Bernie. It's an honor to be with you.
Carolyn recently performed the Mischling Exposé at Molloy University, a deeply moving program that explores the little-known Nazi classification of Mischling through music, testimony, and personal family history. Her father and godmother were both labeled under this hateful system, and through her artistry, Carolyn brings their stories forward with dignity, beauty, and moral clarity.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Was that pretty accurate, would you say?
I would say thank you.
That was an incredible event.
Yes.
We both shared the stage at that time. We had a conversation and we were panelists. But watching your presentation, I was mesmerized. My jaw dropped at some points, and I thought it was such a moving and unique and creative way of telling a story with the piano and you had a PowerPoint deck, I assume it was, maybe some film?
It was a film that we,
Right.
in a sense, patched together, and because it does have a PowerPoint aspect to it in terms of, one slide coming after another. And then there is a film of testimony as well.
It was very well done, very moving, and all those that attended were inspired.
I should hope.
For sure.
Yeah, thank you.
What is Mischling exactly?
Mischling, the definition is it's loosely a half Jew, and there were a variety of ways of measuring. These are Nazi racial laws, the Nuremberg Laws, and so everyone was defined by their race, which in a sense is a kind of false category. Not in a sense, it really is a false category. So someone with 4 Jewish grandparents was a full Jew. Someone with 3 Jewish grandparents, a full Jew. Whether practicing or not,
Right.
whether believing or not, it didn't matter. And someone with 2 Jewish grandparents was classified as a Mischling grade A, and someone with 1 Jewish grandparent was classified as Mischling grade B. And there were laws specifying who could marry, who could procreate, who could own different things. And eventually there were forced labor camp. My father was put into a forced labor camp for Mischling grade A. And they really didn't have a very easy time, because given this kind of liminal zone of being kind of not here and not there, whether they religiously identified or not was not the case, not the issue. It was, what their racial status was.
Right.
And so, employers would maybe look the other way, or the reverse of that, let's say turn someone in. And so my father's kind of psychological approach to things was many times kind of to just stay under the radar. He didn't want to kind of stand out in any particular way.
It's really amazing that they went as far as categorizing who a Jewish person is. However, before the Holocaust, there was always this undercurrent of Jewish hatred. It wasn't really anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is more about the race itself. During the Crusades, if somebody converted to Christianity, they were safe. They were incorporated into the Christian team. But during the Holocaust, it didn't matter.
No.
If you converted.
No.
If you had supposed Jewish blood,
Yeah.
you're going to the gas chambers.
Right. Or forced labor, or being murdered on the
Depending
street. Right.
Yeah, depending on what category. Now, this was something that you enlightened me about. I was not aware of. I'm not a historian. I know a whole lot about the Holocaust, but I'm not a historian. I don't know those little details about these categories, category A and B. And so I was quite impressed. And I did a little bit of reading about that, and I saw, wow, this is incredible that they took the time to really break it down like this.
A lot of that science was, in a sense, passed on from the United States. And Hitler saw that the miscegenation laws here in the United States, in terms of racial mixing,
Right.
that in a sense the general public didn't necessarily stand up and protest. And so he thought, well, okay, fine. He can then fold that into his, demonic racial thinking. And so thankfully these days we don't pay so much attention. I mean, we still have it on our forms, our medical forms of race or ethnicity and stuff.
This is true.
I decline to answer those questions because I don't really know how that information is being used. Is it being used? Well, first of all, how do we, I don't know that we have races. So if it's a false science, as you say, this eugenics, then why are we continuing to sort of try and capture information?
We haven't caught up with the science, with genetics. And genetics now shows us, if you go to Ancestry.com and 23andMe, that we're all related.
We are.
We are 99.9% the same. The only difference is because the colors and the shape. But that's because as we spread out over the planet, depending on the resources we had, we created different cultures, different... depending on how much sunlight we got, up until 5,000 years ago, we all had dark skin.
Yes, right.
And so, but internally, we're all exactly the same.
Yes.
And this concept, this pseudoscience of races is very inaccurate. And so we haven't caught up with that science.
Yes.
Even, some major American industries participated.
100%. Yes.
Especially with categorizing. And I think IBM had a lot of involvement with categorizing when they created their first computers. And you had these holes that you punched in the cards, and that's how they tabulated how many Jews, how many, maybe grade A, grade B, right? How long did it take for you to put together your program, and what inspired you to do it?
As with anything, I think that, there are many paths to get to a final creative project, as I'm sure you know and have experience with. My father, he was kind of shy to tell his story, but did want to, because I found among his papers, business cards of businesses where he could self-publish. So, and he had kind of folders and papers gathered together, and he kept wanting to, in a sense, write an outline and somehow, and I think that emotionally and psychologically, he really kind of couldn't necessarily go there. It's a huge task to revisit trauma, especially, we live busy lives, and then to kind of say, okay, I'm going to now excise myself from the things that are kind of bringing me joy, and I'm going to spend a whole lot of time focusing on things that were painful, and in order to share it, one has to have kind of a psychological discipline, I would say, to understand where the time spent on that is not the whole picture. It's time spent on something where one has a goal, and the goal matters, and it matters because there's some kind of mission behind it in sharing and hopefully, in a sense, creating a healing energy in the world with the information so that we don't repeat these terrible things. And at the same time, be able to go outside and, enjoy the pink of the flowers and kind of stay, in the present as well as having a foot in the past. And so he was not able to kind of absorb that into his life of writing his memoir. So, and after he passed, I know that I'm not somebody who sits down and, writes in a diary every day. I'm not so comfortable writing, and I'm a pianist. And so I thought, well, how am I going to put all this? And you saw in a sense in the credits of my film how many books I've read about the Holocaust,
Sure.
and I kind of wanted to somehow or another get to the bottom of it all, and it's impossible.
Impossible. It's a bottomless pit.
It is. It is. So
Endless information.
right. So I thought, well, with all this research I've done, and the colleague that I had at the time who was assisting me with my career, somehow or another we would talk, and I thought, well, maybe I can put together a program with German Jewish composers, some of whom were Mischling, and then others who had converted. I wanted to explore this area of mixed identity and whether there was something, in a sense, palpable in the music that one could hear, some kind of like internal tension around who am I, what am I? I don't know that one can actually find that in the music, but one thing led to another, and we started to create a film. And then it became what you experienced, and it's in a sense like a live documentary, because the film is running and I'm playing live music, and it's possible to see the film with recorded music embedded in the film, but I think that the emotional power of the experience is really coming from the fact that it's live music.
Right.
It's so expressive.
Totally. There's nothing like live performance. I've been in the business for a long time with live performances, and there's nothing like it. You can watch it on television, but when you're with other people, there's an electricity in the room. Yes. You can feel it. It's a shared experience. I think that's important.
It is. It is.
Words are generally used when you give testimony. Like when I explain my father's story, I use words. You use music. How can music not necessarily replace, but bring out a story and tell a story, maybe even better than the words?
Certainly, especially when it's kind of set up. Like, for example, we have in the film testimony of my godmother and my father. We have then historical information and artwork by some of the other historical figures who share part of that German Jewish lineage and history. And when it's set up like that, then the musical accompaniment, in a sense, taps into the emotions that you might be feeling while you're listening to the testimony and while you're, learning about other figures. For example, the Mendelssohn family, Hans Eisler, Gustav Mahler, Heinrich Heine, or Arnold Schoenberg, certainly. And sometimes it's, we're bombarded with images and words all the time. We're also bombarded a bit with music, but not in a sense in that kind of specific way. When we're in a room, dedicated time to watching a film, listening to music, learning something. In a sense, I mean, music's not so easy to define. So the fact that it's not so definable, I think, then helps to carry the emotional weight of the material.
Right. Music is very emotional.
Yeah.
And many speeches are not.
Right. And it's easy to tune out.
Yeah,
to
very
speeches.
easy. Yeah. I think in college, I fell asleep through half the classes, half the lectures. Wow. And I'm so glad it was in a university setting, by the way. It was a beautiful auditorium. And I don't know if all of your presentations are, set in that type of setting. This was a perfect setting. The acoustics was terrific. They may be different, and you probably noticed that audiences are different as well.
Certainly.
So what do you hope that audiences feel during the performance, and what do you hope they carry with them afterwards?
What I hope that they carry with them afterwards is this, because really my main goal with this, and I say it in my presentation, is to erase lines that divide us. And I think that you and I have a very similar mission in that way, and it was I was so grateful that you pointed it out in our panel afterwards about referring back to this, mother of all of us, Eve, we call her, but it's actually documented that
it is.
Yeah. So
it's genetics, it's science.
It is, right. And so that truly my message is that this is, race does not exist.
Right.
And then it's a Holocaust story that's not very well known. And so I want to, in a sense, bring light to the fact that there was another group, and that hate can kind of go that far into kind of dissecting, the individual's lineage. I mean, think about how much manpower that takes.
It really does.
You know? So, I mean, that's how you want to spend your bureaucratic, time dollars. I mean, it just seems kind of like ludicrous to me.
What we lost during that time was the understanding that every person on this planet is a diversification of this one mother.
Yeah.
Really, this is the human potential. It's a bouquet of flowers.
Yes.
That's what we are.
Yes, right.
Because if everybody looked the same, how boring is that?
Right.
Seriously.
Yes, you're right.
If we all ate bratwurst for breakfast and dinner, that's boring. I like my Asian food, as I mentioned in the film. I like my Mexican. My wife and I love to travel because we're foodies.
Yes.
And foodies represent culture.
Absolutely.
Music represents culture. All of these, the arts. I mean, cuisine is an art. So it represents culture, but it also tastes good, going down.
Absolutely.
You talk about our first original mother who gave birth to today's humanity. Sometimes I ask people, but I don't do this during my presentations, but I'll make you think about something. Is like if she was here today, she'd be very disappointed in all of us.
And their children.
And she's the original mother, right?
Right.
This is a little bit of a Jewish guilt thing, right?
Yes.
She'd be so disappointed. Sometimes I want to say, if the original mother was here, she'd be so disappointed in all of you.
Yeah.
So behave yourselves, please.
Look at what we do to ourselves.
It's so true.
And to each other. And in a sense, there's so much human creativity has also been misspent on finding ways to destroy each other.
Yeah. Well, our attitudes have not changed, but the technology has.
And yes,
so we can kill each other now better, more efficiently, 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
It's just not congruent with today's civilization. We're so advanced as a society, but we're still throwing sticks and stones at each other.
We are. Yeah. So now, in the first part of your question about being at Molloy University, there's a kind of very, very personal aspect to having been able to present this project there, because I actually was raised as a Christian, and I was at Vassar College, and then my piano teacher landed a position at Molloy University, and I wanted to continue studying with him, so I transferred from Vassar to Molloy in order to continue studying with him. And at Molloy, being a Catholic university, part of the core curriculum is 9 credits of theology. And one of the classes I took was Intro to Judaism. And from that point on, I identified myself Jewishly, and then went through 2 different conversions, a Reform conversion and then an Orthodox conversion, because someone said after my Reform conversion, well, but you're not really Jewish, which of course I don't agree with in terms of the different groups of Jews. But anyway, so in a sense, to bring the project home to their space was very personally meaningful for me. And on top of it, it was a prime setup, as you're describing, the auditorium, the piano, just the lighting, every aspect, the screen, every aspect of the, in a sense, tech support was really at prime level.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's a class act over there for sure.
And so what do I hope to gain, in a sense, in terms of sharing it with students especially? And is I love listening to their questions, because they really do absorb it all, and they're living they're further away from World War II than we are. And in a sense, so to kind of, for us, it feels a little bit more like almost a palpable memory because of our parents and the kind of environment that we grew up, whatever, post-traumatic stress disorder and those kinds of things. And, but these kids are learning this information kind of, coming from very, very different backgrounds, not necessarily, all European backgrounds and all. And so their questions are very interesting for me. And then there's a vulnerability, I think, that they still carry because they're young. And so it's very meaningful to share with them and they also many times have questions in terms of, like, technically, how did I put this project together? Because, of course, every family has a story. Every family, many families in the world have inherited trauma.
Right.
In all different angles.
Absolutely.
And so these stories are important. All of their stories are important, and they just enrich all of us in terms of, in a sense, like growing our empathetic impulses and pushing back that kind of like animal reactiveness of our amygdala, and so that we can kind of humanize ourselves actively.
Wow. The young people today are scrolling through social media mindlessly. And we're all kind of like zombies, even as adults. We make fun of kids, but look at, I go to a restaurant, I see a table with a full family, all on their phones, and nobody's talking to each other. They're probably texting to each other or posting something about each other and making comments.
Right.
But we can do a lot better. These kids can do a lot better. They have an incredible future. We have an incredible world that we live in.
We do.
And I hope that they come out of this zombie state and realize how important it is that we improve the relationships between all of us. It's nice for me to say these things. This is all great things that I'm saying, but you need societies, other societies around the world to participate in this. It can't just be us that are talking about it. We live on a tiny little pebble in the middle of this vast cosmos.
Yes.
And I like cosmology. I listen to it a lot. I like quantum physics too. I like the small and I like the very big.
Yeah.
Because it really puts the perspective of where we are. We're somewhere in the middle there. And it makes you very humble and realize that we live on a tiny little, stardust, really, a rock.
Yeah.
And we all share this planet. And we can do a lot better.
Absolutely.
And we can do better together than divided. And I don't know why it seems to me like today we are even more and more divided. And the more we get into this rabbit hole, it seems like we can't come out of it.
Yeah.
Something's got to give.
Yeah, I would say so. The screens are incredibly handy and
Right.
Our communication and so far reaching on the positive end of things. And then it's also can kind of like diminish to two-dimensional, and we're three, and in a sense, four-dimensional if you're exploring the quantum physics. We're mammals. We need to remember that actually we do need human contact. We do need human touch, and they kind of back to, in a sense, being in an auditorium and sharing information with each other and sharing art and music. We feel elevated afterwards, and we can't necessarily like define it, but somehow or another, I don't know, we might breathe easier.
So true. We do. Music unites and it heals.
Yes. Yeah.
And when I was involved with the Jerusalem Academy of Music and Dance this past December, when I produced this concert event, I was talking to the audience and the students about the fact that they've been charged with healing the world. Because if music heals and they're performing music, they're healing the world. They're healers.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a very important responsibility.
Yeah.
It does bring people together.
It certainly does. With anything, any kind of creative endeavor where, it's hard, to kind of squash down our egos. Our egos always want to kind of pop up and, what about me? But when we're aligned with our mission statements with ourselves, then in a sense, the Instagram post or the Facebook post or how many likes or how many scrolls or how many views, it drives a career. That's in a sense, like the business aspect of things. But in a sense, it doesn't necessarily kind of crowd in on the original mission. And so I would encourage anyone who's listening or looking to do any kind of creative work or in any walk of life, really, define a mission statement for yourself. And if what you've done aligns with that, check, job done. In a sense, whether there are 1,000 likes or followers or not, it'll come. And the kind of sense of self-satisfaction and aligning with one's values, is somewhere along the line. I hope that takes priority over something that's so fleeting.
Carolyn Enger, that's a great message, by the way, especially to young people.
Yeah, I should.
Because I was going to ask you, what message do you have for young people? But you answered it beautifully. It's really to realize what your mission is in life and stay aligned with it and stay focused.
Yeah, and come from, it's not hard to find good values. I mean, when we smile at each other, that also elevates us.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't cost anything.
I want to thank you so much for carving out some time.
Thank you, Bernie.
For coming down here to our museum here at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center.
It's my honor to be here with you.
Thank you
Truly,
so much.
Thank you.
And I want to thank my listening audience today for joining me here on Ordinary Heroes. I'm Bernie Furshpan. Until next time.